the sequencing. First, we have the initial move. The initial move, we're looking at tempo, balance, rhythm, and direction, especially tempo. I believe that the brain only can kind of really understand one input in the beginning, and it's going to try to match that the rest of the delivery. Think about the delivery in and of itself, right? It's like 2 seconds. And there's so many things that are happening within that we can dissect. So the initial move, we're setting ourselves up into actual components of the mechanics with just a solid initial move. I mean, a lot of breakdowns that I see from like inconsistency standpoints or command issues, like I do see a lot of cases in which you just fix the initial move and a lot of those things clean up. A simpler way to just naturally increase your power output is just to move faster, lift your foot faster, because like I said, the hand's going to match that. The initial move, the tempo of that initial move, and then now getting into more of the mechanical major components and the sequencing of these is looking at peak leg lift. Now, as we descend from peak leg lift, that is when we get into the drive leg mechanics of things, right? So we're descending from peak leg lift, there's energy to be had. Now that's when we look at drive leg mechanics, when we look at the stability of the drive leg, able to absorb that incoming energy and then able to produce that incoming energy that we just absorbed into the ground force energy. We talked about that within the energy system components, right? So then as we look at that aspect of it, right around here, that's when we look at, can we store some of that energy up for the timing of which we then initiate our rotation? Gets us into hip rotation mechanics. I look at the center point of the drive phase is when most guys will initiate the timing of their hips to rotate. It's going to change, obviously. I look at the drive foot as an indicator of how that is going to change for individual to individual. Ankle, the way that it everts, or does it rotate? All right, so you're rotate, you're not going to really evert. So we're going to see that your hips are going to want to initiate right here, center point of the drive phase. And you actually do a good job with the timing in which you retract and the timing in which you rotate your hips. All right. It's just, like I said, with the acceleration aspect of it, you're not getting a whole lot of energy to block with that lead leg. And this is where I see a lot of byproduct breakdowns of limited forward acceleration. Because when we anchor down, you see now as the hips complete rotation, trunk's going to pull through. Now the trunk is behind the lead knee, which is in flexion, and the throwing shoulder is somewhat in line with the glove side shoulder, which is limiting our amount of extension we can get. And those are byproduct breakdowns. Can't really force those things to happen in the delivery, especially at the end of it. You get a good amount of layback. But I would just see like that as something that gets cleaned up when we emphasize the amount of momentum going forward. We look at Snell, and I'm not saying you should pitch exactly like Snell. It's just a good visual example of a lot of these things, right? So you lift, you get the body start to shift down the slope, abide by gravity. That's going to increase the amount of acceleration that we have. The hips continuously sink to match the angle of the slope as we enter our drive phase. You're going to see the knee start to crack downward. That's essentially the timing in which his hips are rotating. At that point in time, as the hips rotate, elbow is going to retract and rotate. That's going to build rotational energy. Now our job is to position accordingly with our upper body as we anchor down with the lead leg. Not too much knee flexion with that lead leg as we see kind of that happen with you. So then the block is a lot more efficient. What is the biggest attributor to velocity for throwers? The amount of stretch you can get at the point of which you anchor down. So we look at the frame from his front foot anchored into the ground, not just touching down, but anchored. And we look at where his body is and how much retraction he has and how much separation he has, how much rotational energy does he have. Oh, that's easy. It's not, obviously. There's a lot of things to get there. But if you think about your main goal within the initial move and the forward momentum, if we increase your acceleration, we increase your amount of forward momentum within that initial lift, then what do we accomplish? Getting back to the sequencing, hip rotation leads into our lead leg block. We want to land in a good amount of flexion, but not too much, or else I'm not going to get a whole lot of energy. Now, this is a little bit more in depth, but the timing in which the lead leg goes into knee extension should match the timing in which our throwing arm goes into full external rotation, laid back. That's just the kinematic sequence and the energy coming up from the ground to then have available in the throwing arm and at the max point of which you pull that freaking band back. Hey guys, thanks for watching that video. Robby here. If you are interested in learning more about pitch mechanics, I put together an ebook. I'll provide a link right here for you to click to check it out. Everything I know about pitch mechanics, I put it down on an electronic book. #2023.